this year's 2026 is reappraisal year for Grundy County. I know people hate to hear that. And first off, I want to say that um, Tennessee TCA code, which is the laws that Tennessee has to abide by, they are in the Constitution. The property assessor's office is a constitutional office, and we have to abide by the laws of our state. And so the state law says that you are to be on a 4, 5, or 6 year reappraisal cycle. There's no way around it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. You are required to have a 4, 5, or 6 year reappraisal cycle. The Comptroller of the Treasury, Mr. Jason Mumpower, has introduced law a couple years in a row to take away the 6 year reappraisal cycle to make it more frequent, because we believe that assessments can be more fair and more uh, equal if they're more frequent. Mm-hmm. And so you don't have the big gap in between for the market to do all kind of crazy things. So more frequent reappraisals is what the state government is pushing for. So, but now we were on 2020 when I was elected. Miss Joanne Childers had just completed the 2020 reappraisal, and as we all know, pre-COVID, the market was not what it is now. And the market has changed substantially between 2020 and 2026. And you say, why does the market matter? Because the market is what determines the assessment. So I want to get this out here front and, forefront. I do not sit in my office and try to calculate numbers based on what I think the appraisals should be. If I come out and assess your house, our opinion matters because of really one thing. How do we look at the quality of the build of your home? So that's basically the only opinion I get to put in an assessment, is the quality of build. Do I think that this house is an average build, above average build, a higher quality, a lower quality, a standard? That's basically the only opinion, and the rest of it is, based off the book and off of the numbers. But the market is what, the way the law is written, the way reappraisal works, the market is what determines the reappraisal. We do not set those just off the top of our head just because we think, okay, well, I don't like them, their appraisal is going to be this, or I do like them, their appraisal is going to be that. So, briefly, the way it happens, so a deed is brought into the courthouse, it is taken to the Register of Deeds office, and it is recorded. And if it is a warranty deed, then you have to put on that warranty deed the amount of the transaction.
Okay.
So if you buy a piece of property for $50,000 and you come and record a warranty deed, you will be required to put $50,000 on that. And once you do that, then that comes to our office. We process that deed. We change it from person A's name to person B's name, and we put that they paid $50,000 for it. At that moment, that deed has begun setting the market for that kind of property. If it was a vacant piece of property in downtown Tracy City, that deed has begun, it has shown that property is selling for $50,000. I'm just using those names and those numbers very vaguely. And, the next day another deed comes in and is recorded. If it's in the same area, and then it is adding to or taking away from that same market value. So once it's all said and done, a willing buyer. So a willing buyer is someone who in no way, form, or fashion is coerced or if there's a property that's right beside of my property and I find out that there's something going to go on there if I don't buy it, and then I run and pay more than what it's worth, that's not necessarily a willing buyer, willing seller situation.
Oh.
That person had a different need for that property.
Sure.
But a willing buyer, willing seller is, property's been on the market, property that is put up for sale by owner. It's been on, out there for a while. Willing buyer, willing seller, no strings attached, and they pay X amount of dollars for that property. That is a sale that is used to determine the market value.
Huh.
So you can, I don't know the number right off. I should have got that number. But they're in the last 6 years since the last reappraisal, and then this last year, uh, thousands of deeds have been recorded in Grundy County.
Mm-hmm.
I would almost be safe to say there's been more property transactions in the last 5 years than probably were in many years added up prior to. And that is what determines the market value. I've heard people say, and I was guilty of it before, of saying, well, the state sets these rates, or, and our neighboring county, Marion County, I just watched a video they done, and they were saying that, but the whole time in my mind, I was thinking, no, nobody sets the rate except the buyer and the seller.
Mm.
They set the market, and then the market sets the appraisal.
Mm.
So it is the market that, willing buyer, willing seller, and you say, well, who is that? That's people that own property in Grundy County that took advantage of the market and said, well, I want to sell my property too, and they put their property up for sale, and they sold it for $100,000 or whatever it may be, vacant property, and all of that again affects appraisal.
Yeah.
And you say, well, why is that? That's not fair. That shouldn't happen. Because Tennessee code, Tennessee state law says that is how reappraisals work. That I took an oath when I was elected to office to appraise, classify, and assess all taxable property in Grundy County by the laws of the Constitution of the state of Tennessee. And that's all I can do. I mean, and to do it as fairly as possible. And I hope people know now, after me being in office for about 5.5 years, I hope they understand that when they come into our office and they deal with us, that we're not going to treat them any differently than the next person that comes in. Whether they've moved in here, whether they've lived here all their life, whatever, I'm going to treat you the same way as the next person that's going to walk in my doors. And when we go out and assess property, we do it the same way. I mean, it's fair, it's equal. We have standards, we have laws to go by, and the reason I keep saying that, when it comes out, it is what it is. We make mistakes. There is a process for that. I'll get to that in a little bit, but I just wanted to get out there that it's 2026. We was on a 6-year reappraisal cycle. It is time for this. It's time for this to happen. There was no way around it. No one influenced it. No one can change it. No one can stop it. Whether it's me standing in these shoes or somebody else, it would have still happened.
By law.
By law, it would happen. And you say, well, what happens if you don't? My office does not handle money. We do not collect money. We do not handle money. We have nothing to do with money whatsoever. We're not audited by the comptroller's office for financial audit, but we are audited for our work that we do in the office. The Tennessee Comptroller's Office has a division called the Division of Property Assessments, and they oversee every aspect of our work. We're overseen by the office out of Murfreesboro, and we work with those folks on a daily basis because it's good to have a good relationship, working relationship, but they audit our work on a daily basis. And when I say a daily basis, they may not be talking to us every day, but they are looking at deeds that's been recorded. They have access to deeds that's been recorded. They have access to our system. They compare the two to ensure that we have properly took that deed, applied it the way it's supposed to be applied, made the name changes, all those things correctly, and then they audit that work. And that's just one aspect of it. It goes further and deeper, but we are monitored pretty much on a daily basis on how we do our jobs.
Well, every office is audited basically by the state. There's an oversight for everybody.
Right, and that's good. And you say, well, what do? They apply the laws of the state to ensure we're doing our job according to the laws of the state of Tennessee. And I'm glad to say we've never had any issues. Thankful for that, and like I said, thankful for the relationship with them. And I've had to rely on them quite a bit in my first 5 years in the office because there has been so many changes, so many things that nobody's ever saw before, so many different kind. 25 years ago, you had a house that was built. It was either brick, vinyl siding, wood siding. It either had a metal roof or a shingle roof, and that's pretty much
That was it.
that's it. That was the grommet of how things were. But now it's a tiny home. It's
A dome,
a geodome, a tent. It's a tree house.
a bus.
It's a bus. It's a container. It's crazy. And hey, I like it. I mean, I love seeing all the different things. I love going to properties and seeing some of these things and think, man, yeah, it may have a canvas exterior, but buddy, this thing's nice on the inside. I mean, some of those geodomes, we've looked in and been in and saw pictures of, and but their bathrooms and those are nicer than my house. And I'm thinking, ooh, this is nice, but then on the flip side of it, I think, how long is this canvas going to hold up?
Sure.
But there's so many things out there now, and it's changing so much. It's just different. But we enjoy doing the job, and we enjoy doing what the people have elected us to do. And like I said, I hope that people knows that I'm going to treat you fairly and do what I can to try to help you. One of the aspects of our job, not only to apply the law and assess the property in Grundy County, but is to get out there and let the people of Grundy County know what's going on, give you the information you need, and try to be there when you have questions. Hey, I'm willing to answer any question. I'm willing to hear any question. You're welcome to call and talk to me about that. Come see me. We have people on a daily basis come in. I met with a couple yesterday. They came in and we were talking about some property they owned, and they were trying to record some deeds and a plat, and we spent probably an hour hashing out what they needed to do and give them a little bit of guidance. And I don't give legal advice, but they were asking, how is this best going to work for us? How do we need to record these documents for it to work best for us for what our end goal was? And so I just tried to assist them in that, and I'm glad to do that, and we do that kind of stuff quite often. And, come in, see us, talk to us. I will say this while I'm here on this topic. I have informed my employees, and they will tell you, if you come into the office and you're ugly, or if you call on the phone and you're cussing and ranting and raving, guess what? They're going to hang up on you. And I have told them to do that because nobody that works for me in the assessor's office deserves to be cussed, talked to, treated badly. So, there's a panic button on every desk there. So you come in and you're ranting and raving, hey, push the button. Let an officer come in and escort you out of the building. I'm not trying to be ugly about that, but you're looking at people that don't make enough money to be cussed.
You're right.
And you're not going to treat my employees that way, and they don't deserve to be treated that way for doing the job that they've been hired to do.
Are they prepared for this?
Yes, we understand that people get frustrated, and we understand that people get aggravated when it comes to assessments and to appraisals. And hey, we put the work in, and we understand, because guess what? Each one of us that works there, we own property in Grundy County. It affects us exactly the same way it affects everybody else in Grundy County. I cannot change matter of fact, I will not change my assessment. Even if there's something incorrect on it, you will not see where I have went in there and changed that appraisal, because I'm not opening that door. If there was something that needed to be changed on mine, I would go to the state and I would say, listen, there's something wrong on mine, but I'm not touching it.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't do that. That's just not what we do. We don't want people to think that we do that. And there's so much false information that gets put out, so much false information that gets spread on social media. Most of the folks who talk about appraisals and talk about assessment, talk about how it came to that point or why it's got to that point, have no idea of what actually took place. because it doesn't happen to increase revenue. It doesn't happen because another elected official came in and told us to do it. That's just not how it works. I'll say this, from prior year, the way reappraisal works, the state law says that Grundy County as a whole cannot bring in more revenue in the year of reappraisal than they did in the prior year. And in the prior year, Grundy County brought in $6,346,239 in property tax revenue. That's commercial, residential, personal property. That's all of it combined. So every aspect of county government, local government, when it pertains to the general fund in Grundy County, operates on $6,346,000.
Right.
And when you take that number and then you take the reappraisals next year, so remember, $6,346,239 prior year revenue. Revenue for this year, 2026, $6,346,237. $2 different. So to all the folks who say they only done this because the county needed more money, they only do this because, of this, and this, not true. It's actually $2 less in 2026 than it was in 2025. To me, I'm not a big fan of reappraisal because of that, because I feel like Grundy County has had some growth, so it's really not fair to have to operate on the same as you did the year before. But again, that's just the way the law is. It says we cannot bring in more revenue than we did the year before. So it's the current market that sets the rate. It's reappraisal year for us. It's happening. It's here. Tomorrow, May the 1st. Hard to say. We're already in May. Seems like we were just celebrating Christmas. May the 1st, reappraisal notices are going in the mail.
Whoa, here we go.
So reappraisal notices go out in the mail. You'll be getting those in the next 4 or 5 days. Matter of fact, they may put them in the mail this afternoon, but I'm not sure. But those are mailed out from Nashville. But they go in the mail. You'll see the information on there. It'll show your previous year appraisal. It'll show your 2026 appraisal, and you'll see the difference in those numbers. You'll also see our phone number on there and our contact information. If you have any questions about that, I encourage you to call, ask questions. Do not try to come to your own conclusion if you don't know the answer. And call, ask questions. Let us try to help you. Let us try to walk you through that. There is a process that's called informal hearings. You call in the next 2 weeks. We call that an informal hearing. We'll talk to you on the phone. I'll be glad to talk to you. My employees will be glad to talk to you. We'll try to walk you through it. If we've made a mistake, if there's an issue with your appraisal that seems to be incorrect, this is the time we correct it. This is the time we make it right, because I told you we make mistakes. The system makes mistakes. There can be errors in the assessments. If we try to go through that, the state tries to go through that, we try to look at all that, but something as simple as the last time we physically laid eyes on your home, it could have been a certain quality. But since then, you could have had a storm that blowed the roof off, a window that fell out, and, just different things could have happened. The porch could have blown away or whatever, and we don't have that into the calculation.
You took out your pool?
Yeah, tore a deck down, whatever. So, we may not know that because it could have been a couple of years before we physically laid eyes on your home. So, call in and say, hey, listen, I think y'all had a garage on my property. That garage, we tore it down or it burned down. We had a lady call yesterday because a house had burned out in the Skymont area. And she questioned and said, well, why wasn't it taken off of my appraisal and my tax bill? Again, because we don't have codes. We don't have codes enforcement. We don't have all these things. Unless we physically see it, we don't know that house is burned. We don't have an automatic reporting system that tells us. It's up to the individual. And when your home burns, the last thing you're thinking about is calling the assessor's office to tell them about your house. So But that don't mean you're penalized for it. We'll go back and try to make it right. I mean, I have the ability to do that, and but things can change on your property. So call in, talk to us about it. We'll be glad to walk you through it. You say, how does Grundy County have an increase in appraisals, but they do not have an increase in revenue? And one reason I encourage you to call in is because the state, the Board of Equalization in Tennessee, they set what is called the certified tax rate. And they take all of our numbers and they determine the certified tax rate. They send that to us, and the county commission adopts the certified tax rate. And once the certified tax rate is adopted, that's then how the taxes are determined. So they give us, based on our numbers, what's called a preliminary certified tax rate. And last year, the last 3 years, we had a certified tax rate of $1.42.
Wow.
And when I started, it was $2.53.
I was about to say.
So when appraisals are low, the tax rate is higher, and when appraisals are higher, the tax rate begins to come down. So you say, yeah, my assessments and my appraisal has went up, but the tax rate has went down again because of the revenue situation. But we had $1.42 prior to this year. This year it's $1.14.
Wow.
So basically, it went down 28 cents, and so that is what offsets the rise in the appraisals. I will not sit here nor anywhere else and tell you that your taxes will not go up. That's the biggest mistake that happens. I see other officials, I see other counties that says your tax bill will not go up. That's not true. Some folks, and I've went through the numbers. I've looked at as many samples as I possibly could. Some folks' tax bill will go down.
Mm-hmm.
Some folks will stay almost exactly the same, within $1 or $2, and some folks may increase a few dollars.
I think Montego goes up. It depends on the area.
It depends on the area. Yeah, it's one thing about reappraisal is we have markets. Each market is treated differently. The Montego market is treated differently than the Tracy City market, and that's treated differently than the Comont and the Palmer. And you say, why is that? Because the market value on deeds that's been recorded that has sold in that particular area is different. We have prime market areas, and then we have neighborhood codes that we apply to those prime market areas. So, let's say somebody in Altamont, their values may have went up, but their tax bill is going to be close to the same. But somebody that lives in Montego, and I'm just using these for example because I don't have any in front of me, theirs may go up $50.
Mm-hmm.
But then you may go to Tarleton Valley, and theirs may go down $10. Mm-hmm. So if you look at it this way, for the revenue to remain exactly the same, for every ones that went up $10, somewhere somebody has to go down $10. Yeah. So every one that went up $100, somewhere along the way there had to be a decrease in $100, whether it was 10 times 10. But it had to equal out somewhere. Commercial properties sometimes may not change as much because we don't have as many commercial sales in Grundy. Mm-hmm. You asked a question earlier, and it's always a hot topic about gated communities, tiny home communities, all these things. Those areas in a reappraisal have their own neighborhood code. They have their own market value. As we well know, they set their market for inside of those communities. So Montego Sunday School Assembly here in Montego has been treated differently as far as the market for many years because they don't sell property the way that other places in Grundy County sell property. Anybody that knows anything about the Montego Sunday School Assembly, it's not something that you just put it on the market and sell it. It doesn't happen that way, and I like the way they do things because it keeps the historical value of that community. Mm-hmm. They don't just let a developer come in there and buy it and do whatever they want to. They have their own rules that they go by, and you don't own the property. You lease it for all these years. And so their market inside of the Montego Sunday School Assembly has to be looked at individually because there's no way you can compare it to just a standard property selling in Altamont. And same way with the tiny home communities. The tiny home communities in Grundy County, as you well know, I think there's about 7 maybe phases of different tiny home communities now, between Deer Lick and Water's Edge and Sunset Bluff on Summerfield Road also. They determine their market for those communities. So a sale in Palmer doesn't affect the market inside of Water's Edge. And a sale in Water's Edge does not affect the market in Palmer. Okay. Because that's not how reappraisal works. That affects the market inside that community. So we were discussing that yesterday because in the office, because if we go, they'd actually been doing some work out there, and when they go and pick up a tiny home inside of the tiny home development, it puts a factor on that shows it's a tiny home inside of that development. And then when you call in, you give us your name, we type it in, we pull it up, we see that information, we know right then that's inside of a tiny home community. Okay. And so they're all treated, we're fair and consistent across the county, but each target area has to be treated differently because of the market value. And again, it all goes back to the market. Mm-hmm. And the market has changed. You can blame that on who you want to. You can blame that on somebody moving in. You can blame that on somebody selling their property, but it's a willing buyer and a willing seller. So for somebody to be, and I'll say this, for somebody from somewhere else to be able to buy a piece of property in Grundy County, somebody in Grundy County had to put it up for sale. Right. And so you had a willing buyer, willing seller. They paid X amount of dollars for it, and that is put into the market to determine the market value. It's not a easy process. It's not something easy to go through. Neighboring counties, Murfreesboro Office Division of Property Assessment I spoke about earlier. In Middle Tennessee, the increase in Grundy County was the least out of the Middle Tennessee counties that went through reappraisal here. So I pulled up some numbers last night as I was thinking about coming here. The law says we have to be at 100% of what the market value is. Well, actually it says you can't be below 90% of what the market value is. So in reappraisal year, the goal is to get you at 100% of market value. So we're at 76%. Our ratio is 76. So we was 24% off of market value at this moment. I looked at numbers across the state for 2025, and there were some that were at 58%, 56%, 60%, 62%. So the average was 75 to 80% of, here surrounding that I could see. But we are on the good side of it. And you say, why is that? I'll mention we had to go through the CVU in 2023, and that happens in a 6-year reappraisal. We were so far off the market from 2020 that helped get us part of the way there. So if you'll see, we had a 28-cent deduction in the tax rate, which is about a 28%, 26% decrease in the tax rate because we're 25% off of market value. So that's how you get that equalization where there's no new revenue. So if for some reason your prime market in your area where you live went up more than 25%, then you could see a small increase in your property. And again, if your market was set and you did not increase any in your market, you could see a small deduction in your. So again, don't panic. It's not a disaster. It's not a huge change. It's not like you brought it up. Our neighbors in Marion County, they've had a lot of issues with people complaining about their appraisals. you know, again, their market changed that much, and ours is not that drastic, thankfully. Ours is on the lower end. As I said, in Middle Tennessee counties, we are one of the lowest in our ratio and our change in appraisal. So, thankfully, I think we can battle the storm. We can overcome it. We're going to be okay. I just wanted to get out the facts about the information, and I don't want you to be misinformed. I don't want you to misunderstand what's happening. There will be people, I can promise you, there will be people that gets on social media and they go into workplaces and business places and they say, well, that bunch at the courthouse just needed more money.
Yeah.
Come in, I'll gladly show you this piece of paper that is calculated by the State Board of Equalization, who we all have to answer to when it's all said and done in the property assessment world, that shows a $2 difference to the negative from what the revenue was last year. I had somebody make the statement a few years ago, said, well, he must have needed more money to go on vacation. I don't handle money. I don't accept payments for anything. There's no way that could possibly happen, and whether your assessment goes up or down, I get it paid exactly the same. I don't determine that. That's set by the state of Tennessee. Every elected official in the state of Tennessee is set by chart by the state. It doesn't change anything to do with my life other than the fact of it changes my personal appraisal, which affects me personally. But outside of that, it doesn't change anything in my world. I don't live better because of it or live worse because of it. I just want to apply it to the county to the best of my ability and treat everybody the best I can and be fair and consistent from one end of the county to the other.
Well, it's a big topic. There's a couple of questions, and you've been addressing several of them of things that people ask you. Seniors, they're saying that our taxes are keeping kicking out our seniors because they can't afford. How would you answer that?
Right, I understand that, and I my grandmother passed away last year, and she had was very close to living until she was 98 years old. Blessed to have her my entire life, and thankfully got to see her live to an old age, and but she lived on a fixed income. Uh, Social Security for somebody like her, they had owned their own business over the years, and done fairly well for themselves at the time, but she outlived her husband by 25 years. She was the only source of income for that amount of time, and it's hard. So there is you can call the Grundy County Trustee's office. Again, we don't deal with property tax payments, but you can call the trustee's office. There's a program that's called tax relief, and it can help you with if you meet the qualifications. But there's several different representatives and senators across the state that are pushing for a tax freeze for the elderly. I've not done any calculations or any figures on that. So what happens is once you get to a certain age, it would freeze your tax amount that you couldn't pay no more than that for a certain amount of time. And I believe the way they presented it, it would be with the exception of a reappraisal year if some things had to change. So, but I understand that. I understand that it's tough for folks. I understand that this day and time it's tough for folks. It's hard when you're on a fixed income. It's hard when you have a mom and a daddy both working and they're raising 3 kids, and it's not cheap. I'm thankful that right now I'm not buying diapers and baby formula and things like that. But I've got grandkids and our daughter. We've got a granddaughter and that's having to buy diapers and things of that right now. So I understand the struggles that the folks have, and I understand that it's hard at times, and that's why we want to be fair. That's why we want to be consistent. We want to make sure that everybody's treated the same, And again, I feel the pain. I understand that it's tough. And again, I can't really weigh on the tax-free situation because I've not done very much research on it. But I could see how it could have its definite good side for the folks that qualify for the program. And I also could see how it could be semi-detrimental to the county side of it because of revenue, because we all know cost of living goes up every day, which in turn, if cost of living goes up, it means the expenses for the county government goes up, which means if you have a frozen tax base and you continue to have expenses go up, then at what point does one overcome the other, and you say, well, you're talking about the elderly, but our community is made up of a lot of folks that are elderly, and so I can't say, much details about it because, like I said, I've not done that much research, but I know there's a lot of talk about it right now statewide.
Sure.
For senior tax free. So, we'll see what happens with it.
Another question that I hear a lot when I'm seeing Facebook posts is like, I'm excited in Monteagle in my property that my appraisal is going up because it is my retirement plan.
Right.
I plan on, Taylor is not going to take it, so I'm going to have to sell at some
Right.
point. And so that makes me happy that my appraisal is higher than it used to be. And so, what's the benefit of a higher appraisal?
Equity in your property. So that is true. And again, even though our appraisal, what we say is 100% of the market value, we don't take into consideration a lot of, let's say, interior features, special features of your home, because there's really no way for us as tax appraisers to apply that to your home. A fee appraiser who may come, if you're getting a mortgage on your home or you're planning to sell your home and you want to get a fee appraiser to come out and appraise your property, they're going to take into consideration things that we don't consider. So still, even though we say we're at 100% of market value, if you go out and get a fee appraiser to appraise that property, odds are it's going to be even higher than what we have it appraised at. So it does build equity in your property. If 2 years ago your property was worth $250,000 and now it's worth $400,000, then you're to be happy that you have that much more equity in your property. I have so many people that calls in and says, well, you got my property appraised for X amount of dollars. I wished I could sell it for that. I talked to a lady here a while back and I told her, I said, ma'am, please do me a favor. Do not put your house on the market for what we have it appraised. Mm. Well, why? I said, because you'll be losing out. Mm-hmm. She had a nice brick home, paved driveway on a main highway in Grundy County, because her mindset was they paid $100,000 when her and her husband bought it, and to her that's what it's worth. Mm-hmm. And because we had it appraised maybe at $225, I said, please don't put it on the market for that. Yeah. I said, you'll be getting a U-Haul trailer and packing your stuff up. Are you serious? I said, yes, ma'am. I said, don't take my word for it. Call a real estate agent. Call a fee appraiser. Ask them what they would sell your house for. And I take it she probably done that because I never did hear from her anymore. And I know her, so I see her. She never mentioned it to me again. The market is what the market is. How long is it going to stay this way? I talk to people in the real estate business. I don't know how long it's going to stay this way. I don't know how long it's going to maintain. In 2008, you had a real estate crash, but it's held pretty strong for 6 years. It's held pretty strong, not just Grundy County. Mm-hmm. There's no one reason in Grundy County that has caused this to happen. It's the state of Tennessee in general. When I tell you I looked at the numbers across the state of Tennessee that showed, just by looking at those numbers and knowing what those numbers consist of, it tells me that the market across the state of Tennessee is the same as it is in Grundy County. It's went crazy since 2020. And you say, why is that? Because when COVID came along, when the epidemic happened, big cities shut down. All these places came to a screeching halt. They found out that there was a rural place in the United States that had easy access to an interstate system, that had easy access to, for Grundy County example, easy access to the fastest internet in the country, uh, easy access to the biggest cities in Tennessee. Uh, you have jobs when you talk about Tennessee. You have jobs. You got Huntsville. You got, you know, Nissan and Deckard and in Smyrna, and you got the Ford stuff happening out in West Tennessee. You got all these things going on across the state of Tennessee. People begin to look at Tennessee and they begin to move here. And once they saw Tennessee, then they began to narrow it down. And they didn't want to live in the big city anymore, but they didn't want to be so far and out of touch with those things. They said, there's a rural county in Tennessee that I can be 30 minutes from Murfreesboro, I can be 30 minutes from Chattanooga, I can be 10 to 15 minutes from the interstate, and I can be disconnected from everything, but in a 30-minute drive, I can be right in the middle of everything I want to be in. And that's how it happened. Folks came here during COVID, and they hiked the trails because there was nothing else for us to do. And they found out that there was miles and miles of trails to go and hike, and nobody will bother you. Nobody will be around you. You don't have to wear a mask, and
Freedom, baby.
freedom. So those things happened. People began moving here, and I have so many people that comes into the office that may have moved here from Chicago. I had one person in particular came in, and they said, "Is it possible for you to give me an estimate on what my taxes may be this year?" And I said, "Yeah, I can do that." I said, "It'd take me just a minute to do the calculations." I said, I don't send out tax bills and I don't collect taxes. This will solely be an estimate of what it could be. And I think I told them at the time maybe $1,600. And they looked at me real funny and said, "Month?" And I said, "No." I said, "That's for the year." And they said, "Well, we were paying $12,000 where we came from a year for the same size house on a smaller lot." And so you have so many folks that says our taxes are high, our taxes are high, our taxes are high. No, you can go anywhere in the country and find higher taxes. You can go almost anywhere in the state and find higher taxes. You got to compare apples to apples. You can't compare a 2,000 square foot house in Grundy County to a 1,000 square foot house in another county and tell me that their taxes are cheaper or their appraisal's less. And again, we deal with appraisals more than anything, but you got to compare apples to apples. You have to compare the same. So it is a difficult time for us. It's a difficult time for everyone in the county. It's a difficult time for our country right now. We are going through a stressful time, but there's greater things out there. There's greater things to come. Again, you can be mad at me, you can be upset with me, but on the other side of it, I would like to think that you would be proud that I represent the county the way I do, because I want to apply the laws and the rules that are put down to us from the state of Tennessee fairly and equally across Grundy County. I do not, as a resident of Grundy County, I do not want to have an elected official who is not doing the job that they've been elected to do. And sometimes doing the job we're elected to do is hard, and it's tough, and it's difficult, and it's difficult to understand. But, again, I've spent a lot of time dedicated to my community. I'm beginning to be one of the older ones now, not necessarily in age as much as involvement. And it's been over 20 years that I have served in various positions in our community, because I love Grundy County, and I love my hometown, and I love our community, and I love this place, and I love where we live, and I love every aspect of it, and I want to be part of it, and I want to see it flourish. I want to see great things happen. I want to see the people of Grundy County treated the way they deserve to be treated. And we've always got the cold shoulder. We've always got talked about. We've always got looked down upon. And that's not the Grundy County that we know as local. It's one of the greatest places, if not the greatest place in the whole United States to live. You can find that out when somebody's in need. I'll say this real quickly. We had a community member that was in need. They put together a little fundraiser, and they asked me to be part of it, and I was able to be the auctioneer. I've kind of dabbled with that stuff over the years, and I love doing that. So they had a ton of stuff at that benefit for those folks, and they were very, very desperately in need at the time. And one coconut cake, when the night was over, sold for over $3,000.
No.
And you say, well, them people's crazy. No, that's what Grundy County does when somebody's in need. The people that was in there were people from Grundy County. They were not people from Chattanooga and Murfreesboro and Nashville. They were Grundy County folks in there supporting that family. Somebody bid $1,000 on the cake when it was all said and done, and I said, sold to you. And they said, I don't eat coconut cake, sell it again.
Oh my
So we
goodness.
bid it off again and sold it to them, and they said, I like chocolate better, sell it again. So we sold it again. So when it was all said and done, it was over $3,000. That's the Grundy County that I know. That's the Grundy County that I grew up in. That's the Grundy County that I represent. The one that comes together when people stand in need. Not the one that the people outside talk about, because they don't know nothing about it. And Grundy County is one of the greatest places in the world, and I'll stand by that forever. And people says, well, it's changing. Well, it's this. The entire world is changing. Before it's all said and done, the entire world will be changed, and it will be different. But you have elected me to do a job. I do my very best to do that job and represent the people of Grundy County, not only by the laws of Tennessee, but by the ethics and by the morals that God has instilled in me to want to do and live my life to a certain standard. So when I'm in the office at the courthouse as the property assessor, I hope that people have saw over the last 5.5 years that when I'm in that office, or when I'm in the Piggly Wiggly, or when I'm in the pumping gas at the gas pump, I'm the very same person that you see day in and day out. Because I have dealt with folks that they're different from one day to the next, from one position to the next, and I don't ever want to be guilty of that. And I've even prayed the prayer at times, God, if that ever happens to me, remove me from that position. If I ever quit using it for your glory, don't allow me to do it anymore. And so it's not election year for me. Election year comes 2-year cycle different than everyone else's. And I don't want to be that person that they say, well, we see him, but it's only at election time. Or we see him only when he needs this or needs that. I don't want to be that person. And I hope people have saw that over the last 5.5 years and the last 20 years of my life as I've dedicated to the public and to the citizens of Grundy County and Palmer individually, because I served as mayor there for so many years. But it's just the way things happen. We just do our job and try to do it the best we can.
Amen. All right. What have we missed, Daniel? I feel like we've covered a lot of territory.
Not too often that you have a guest that they do the majority of the talking, I guess. But
No, this is what we're here for. I was like, I'm ready, because it's just such a hot topic.
It's a hard topic. It is. It's tough. Again, it's reappraisal year. I'll touch the high spots real quick. It's reappraisal year. Assessments are changing. You are going to get an assessment change notice in the mail beginning tomorrow, May the 1st. Those will be mailed out. They'll be mailed to the address that we have on file. So if for some reason you don't get one, you may have recently changed an address. You may have went from a post office box to a route mailbox. So if you don't get one in the next 2 weeks, please call us. Say, hey, I didn't get one. What's happening with my assessment? When you see that assessment change notice, do not panic, because the tax rate changes. Let us discuss it with you. Let us talk to you about it. I have folks in the office, even myself, that are willing to come out and look at your property to ensure that we have it accurately assessed. And we want to do our very best to ensure that everything is correct when it comes to your assessment. So don't flip out, don't panic, don't place the blame on anybody else, don't place the blame on anything that's going on in our county right now. It solely is market based on what the market is in Grundy County. And that is a willing buyer, willing seller selling a piece of property for X amount of dollars, and that begins to start a trend for the market. So, happening all across the state of Tennessee, happening in every neighboring county, and no matter who stands in these shoes, who sits in my seat, it's going to happen again in 5 years. And you say, why in 5 years instead of 6 years? So, again, I told you that the comptroller's office in the state of Tennessee is wanting to go to more frequent reappraisals. So we were at a 6-year reappraisal, and the law that was being passed was being proposed was the greatest number was 4. Mm-hmm. So it would be 432 for reappraisal instead of 654. So that would have meant if I stayed the same at a 6-year reappraisal, that law got passed, then I was going to have to go from a 6 to a 4, mm-hmm. which was going to put a heavy burden on my staff and on myself and on our office. But if we go from a 6 to a 5, which is very minimal when it comes to, the staff, very minimal when it comes to the workload. And then if the law passes and we have to go to a 4, then it's only one more step from a 5 to a 4. So we've already made half the journey. Okay. So I didn't want to go from a 6 to a 4 at one time. I'd rather go from a 6 to a 5, mm-hmm. get settled in, then go from a 5 to a 4 if the law passes. If the law doesn't pass, we've not really hurt ourselves or done anything to harm the appraisals, because more frequent reappraisals means that our market and our appraisal are more closely tied together, consistent. Because what has happened this time, you went from 2020 to 2026, you had that 6-year gap that caused this big spread between the market and the appraisal. So more frequent reappraisals takes that out of the picture. So 2031 will be the next reappraisal. So the assessment that you get this year that comes out in the mail this week will be your assessment until 2031, unless you change something on your property, unless something happens to where we need to take something off your property, you build, whatever, that'll be your assessment till next reappraisal.
So you won't have a halfway mark?
No halfway mark in a 5-year reappraisal.
No kidding.
Yeah. So, and then in 2031, we'll see what happens. And again, I said it earlier, I don't know how long the market will stay this way. I can tell you this, the values of the market that began in 2020, 2021, let's say, the values that began to see then are still the values we see today. The market's just a little bit slower right now. At one time, you could put a house on the market today and it was gone tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Now they're staying there for 2 weeks, a month, maybe 2 months, but they're still selling for the same amount of money.
Okay. So we've kind of evened out.
Yeah, I think we're at that level point now, and from everybody I've talked to in the state of Tennessee, other assessors, I think they're in the same boat. I don't think they're seeing an increase anymore. I think we're all kind of level. I think we're all seeing the same trends right now in the market.
All right, last question before you go. The monks that bought the property in Grutley, or outside of Grutley, mm-hmm. What would that be? What would that property be classified as?
It's a farm at this point. It's a farm that the previous owner had under the Greenbelt classification. You have to have over 15 acres of agriculture or forest land to be qualified as a Greenbelt property. And I can't remember right off. I would almost automatically assume, because most folks do, I would say that they reapplied and put it back into the Greenbelt program as a farm property. We have no discussions. Again, we don't have codes enforcement. We don't have zoning. We don't have planning in Grundy County, so there's no reason for them to have to submit a plan to anyone to what they plan to do with the property. But they have not had any discussions with us in the property assessor's office about how do we split up our property? How do we, parcel it out to where we have 1 acre lots that we sell? We've not had any conversations of that. So to my knowledge, without any further conversations or information, if I just looked at the facts of what I have, I'd say they're just farming the property and moving on. I don't know. I've saw things on social media, things that's been said, but I have no reason to believe that they're going to do anything other than what they're doing.
Okay.
If they change it, if they go out there and build 100 houses and all that stuff, then it's the way that it's assessed will have to be changed. But again, I don't think they have the ability to do that because I don't think there's enough water. I don't think there's enough places to build septic tanks and all that. But hey, it's their property. We'll see what they do with it.
Yes, America.